All right. Hello, hello, and welcome to the inaugural Picture Show podcast. We are your hosts. This is Bryn.
And this is Noah. And to kick off our very first episode, we are going to talk today about the famous Barbenheimer.
Yeah, that's right. About $2.4 billion at the box office this summer, 21 Oscar nominations between them. Uh, it just took over the world this summer. And so we're here to talk about it in February. Bryn, I went and saw this in the theaters. I saw this with tons of people. Everyone was wearing pink. It was such an intoxicating environment. I think that really helped how I felt about the film. It's easy to get caught up in that. You came to the movie a little later.
Just a little, just like 6 months, not a big deal. I'm always timely.
Do you think that affected your experience with it at
I
all?
definitely think it did. I think that a lot of the reviews that came back were very much enveloped in the atmosphere of when it came out. Like you said, it was a whole event. Everyone that went decked out in pink. Had I gone, not that I wear pink often, but I would have done it. And I definitely think that it was very much atmosphere that added to kind of the emotional buy-in for it, which is really cool because you don't really see that very often. People don't really get dressed up to go to the movies anymore.
Yeah, it was a cultural event.
It really was. And I think that definitely would have added to it. Not that I had a bad time watching it at all. We just got a new movie set up in our basement, so I got to watch it on a 70-inch TV. So I'm not complaining by any means. But I definitely think that I missed out a little bit on the cultural aspect of the viewing experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a good movie either way. It's a total
Absolutely.
blast. Total
Yeah.
blast. One of the
Yeah.
funniest movies of recent memory.
Absolutely.
Um, I guess let's sort of start with Barbie herself, I guess. Let's start with Margot Robbie. She kind of shoulders this whole movie. It's maybe a little bit of a thankless role, kind of playing the straight man to Ryan Gosling's more out there and maybe more talked about performance, but she's really every bit his equal. She is so funny and manages to kind of ground you in a really exceptional, ungrounded sort of world.
Yes, she
It's not
definitely
easy.
holds her own in this in every
Hmm.
way, shape, and form. And I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better person for that role. Really, I think all of the roles in this movie were just perfectly cast. I think that they got every right person that they could for these roles. But I mean, head to toe, she was the perfect person for this role. The fact that the world was an outrage over her feet before it even came out. When do you ever see that?
Yeah,
Except
she's
from
the whole package.
and I don't know, I just the physical acting, the range that she had in this role to
Hmm.
really kind of bring out the comedic moments, but also balance that out with just bringing so much raw emotion to the parts that called for it. I
Hmm.
mean, the way that she cried in the scenes where it was needed, like it was perfect. It didn't take away from the moment. It really kind of pulled you into it. I just thought she did a beautiful job.
Yeah, she's a fantastic crier.
Yes.
The scene with the Billie Eilish song, the song is really good, but she totally sells it. That moment in the film really is what it is because of her.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you weren't crying in that scene when you watched it the first time, I don't I don't know where you became a heartless person, but that if that doesn't get you, I don't know what will. It was just the perfect, again, just the raw emotion from her, and with that song paired in the background, it just really put you in that place.
Yeah, she does a really good job of picking her moments with it too. She
Yes.
can really hold
Yeah.
back the crying. And then there's sometimes where she's just blubbering and she just picks all the right moments, and
Yeah.
it's so funny. There's the scene after she talks with the little girl she thinks might be her connection in the real world, and she gets totally blasted by this girl and she's crying outside of the school, and it's one of the funniest scenes in the movie. Some of the best lines. uh
Yes.
she's just so good. And we talked a little bit about her comedy, like her physical comedy. She can move so stiffly. She lies down and just like she totally sells the whole plastic doll thing. It's
Yeah.
a really like lived in role, which is really funny for such
Oh
a
yeah.
yeah. She totally sells the artifice and the fun of it all.
Yeah. No, I really think she knocked that one out of the park. I think she just did a phenomenal job.
Right. And you know, there's a little bit of controversy over you know, her snub in Best Actress. It's a tough year.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah.
tough year, and she is really good. I didn't think when I saw the movie she was gonna get in. Not that the performance is bad, because it's. I
Yeah.
mean, that's not an easy role to pull off.
No.
Um, yeah, she did a
And
fantastic job.
and I honestly I almost think that the snubs kind of play to the message of the movie. I mean, she in all of this in one of, in the biggest movie of the year, she is being overlooked for things. And if that doesn't hit home about the message of the film, I don't know. I don't know what does. I think within the film, where she is kind of overlooked or maybe underplayed around some of the other characters, I think that they did a really good job at including the voices of a wide range of women from different demographics. And just, I think that they really did a good job of being inclusive in that way. And I think that she was perfectly underplayed in the movie in that way. But yeah, when it comes to the recognition portion for Margot herself, I think that that really just honestly plays edge.
Yeah, and you know, Margot has been really gracious about it. You know, she hasn't been
Oh yeah.
like upset about it or anything. Like she's
No.
really just excited for the success that the film has had.
Which, I
And
mean, $1 billion, I feel like I could wipe my tears with that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I don't think that I'd be too
she'll be
upset.
okay. She'll be
Yeah.
okay.
I think we
Um,
could,
yeah, and a lot of the conversation is centered around Ryan Gosling, because it's such an immediately iconic comedic performance. It's one of the best
yeah.
comedic performances of the last
Yeah.
however many years. Um, you know, a lot of but a lot of that greatness is their chemistry. What
Yes.
Margot brings to those scenes with Ryan kind of gives him a springboard to jump off of. And he is, I mean, come on, he's firing on all cylinders in this movie. Um, yeah, he when he was originally cast, there was a lot of raised eyebrows about, you know,
Mm,
whether he was too old, whether he was capable of this type of role. And I mean, anyone that was raising their eyebrows, you just don't know Ryan Gosling. Like, this is one of our funniest actors.
yeah, for sure. And the physical comedy for him, oh, I could not contain it. It was so good. And
Yeah, there's
the
so much
fact
good
that,
slapstick in this movie.
yes, and it wasn't like cheap either. And it was so
Mm-mm.
much of it was improv. And I mean, the scene where he puts on two pairs of sunglasses, how could
Hmm.
you not just
His
lose
timing.
it? It was just great. It was perfect.
Yeah,
It was,
there's a huge improvisational element
yeah.
to this movie. A lot of the comedy comes, and it just from that improvisation. It feels so natural, and Ryan is just such a good improver. I don't know. The scene where where Margot decides to be his long distance, low commitment girlfriend is so funny. Like the elation he shows once he sort of backs off behind, you know, it's just so funny. And you just have two people giving sort of unexpected performances here and just breathing life into this role. This was not, I think, an easy film to make. You
No,
know, like there,
no.
it's kind of tough, and the direction they took it was so new and so unique, and I mean, it was just so successful.
Yeah. And I think even just in the very early discussions of Barbie and just kind of the mention that a Barbie movie was being made, I think a lot of people kind of rolled their eyes a little bit. They were like,
Hmm.
oh, great, another one.
You know, I've
But
seen
it's,
a lot of these direct to video Barbie movies. You know, I've seen Mermaidia, I've seen Fairytopia, I've been in the trenches, and this is just a different animal. This is a different animal. Like, this is
yeah,
like this was such I'm a big fan of Greta Gerwig. I've
Mhm.
loved her past movies. Lady Bird is so good. Little Women was
Yeah.
looking forward to this movie, and I felt confident that it would be good. But I mean, I was just really surprised with just how fresh it felt, how unique
Yeah.
it was. I mean, when was
Yeah.
the last time we had a movie like this in the theaters? And
Seriously.
everyone went and saw it. It was
Yeah.
really exciting.
Except me, but I got there.
Hey,
I got there. Wasn't for lack of trying.
man, they could have had just a little bit more money, man. And you
Yeah,
couldn't.
just
Not
that much
feminist,
more.
Bryn.
My
Not
dollar really
feminist
would
of
have
you.
broke it. But I
Yeah.
think that I think that, it really changed for everyone when that trailer came out. And like I
Hmm.
am a sucker for a good trailer, but the nod to 2001, are
Yes,
you
this movie
kidding
loves
me?
movies, and that's one of its biggest strengths. This movie loves movies, and I
It
love that.
does. I think that that was the moment that everybody kind of flipped a little bit. They kind of went from, oh great, another Barbie movie, to, oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, like
I
they're doing
have
something
to.
here. They're in
Yes.
their bag here.
Yes. I loved that. That's probably one of my favorite movie trailers ever. It was great.
Yeah, and I love the whole film bro Godfather bit, like that had me laughing in the theaters. That had all my friends turning to me and pointing and laughing at me. It felt good to see that representation
Yeah.
on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really really fantastic. It's a great script. There is a
Mhm.
lot of improvisation, but the script really gives the actors that sort of springboard to go off
Mhm.
of.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting structure. Like I really did not know what the story was going to be, and I thought they found
Yeah.
such an interesting angle to go at.
Yeah. And I think that that's kind of why a lot of people were apprehensive in it, because
Yeah, what is
you
this
don't
going to
know.
be?
Right. Is this just going to be, another kids movie? Is it just going to be placating to little girls? Like, is that going to be it? Not that there's any problem with that. There are settings that call for it, but I think
Hmm.
that it is something that every audience can find a little bit of relatability to, and I think that's why it's so important.
Yeah, it really was marketed like for women and everything, but
Yeah.
the movie has really got something for everyone. Like I think
Hmm.
it's definitely female centric, and it's definitely
Yeah.
exploring a lot of ideas behind sort of just generalized gender expectation, not just of like women, but like what does it mean to be a woman in the world right now, and what does it mean to be like just a person in general. And I think they
Yeah.
have a little something for like everyone, the men, the women, the people who are kind of in between or whatever. And it's just a really inclusive movie. Like they did a really good
Absolutely.
job of
Yeah.
like bringing everyone into the fold, which
Yeah.
it's really funny to see people say it's a man-hating movie because they give men a lot in
You
this movie.
ran right into the point and missed it entirely. Like, let's just back it up here. Like, I don't know. I feel like it is one of those movies that you don't see very often where every voice was included.
Hmm.
And you don't get that much, especially outside of main characters. You just don't
Hmm.
see it often. So I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, it's such a blast to watch, and the actors bring a lot to it. But a lot of it is like the look of this film is intoxicating. The sets, the
Discipline.
costumes, the colors, like the
Yes.
the first time you see Barbie Land, it really leaps off the screen.
Oh my
There was a
gosh.
lot about the global pink paint shortage because of the production of this movie, and like you see it on screen and it's worth
Yeah.
it. Like you want to run
Absolutely.
up and just live in that world, run
And
right
like,
up into the screen.
yes, if nothing else than the records it broke for that. Like, come on,
Hmm.
that's worth its own applause. But at the same time, like, I think it would be really easy for them to just vomit pink on the set. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would have been easy to just like plaster it, but the color, the vibrancy, and
Hmm.
the way they balance that is just, it's like you're looking at cake, you know, like it's beautiful.
Yes. It just
And it was
the whole movie
so,
looks like cake tastes. It's
and
amazing.
it exactly, and I haven't had that since Grand Budapest Hotel, so I was
Absolutely.
soaking that in. And
Another great
I
Pink film.
yes, and it just felt so intentional. I mean,
Hmm.
all of the details, her giant hairbrush, the fake food, the see-through
Hmm.
mirror, the fake water on the beach. It just felt so purposeful.
Yes. Every inch of that felt like it was handcrafted by people that like really
Yeah.
cared about what they were
You had
doing, and
people who were
you can tell.
invested.
Yes,
Yes.
and it goes
People
a
cared.
long way. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
I just love all the segments in Barbie World. I don't
Mhm.
like when we go into the real world. I find myself just wanting to go back to Barbie World because it
Yeah.
is just so fun.
But I also loved that stark contrast. I mean, you have
Mm.
this beautiful, just like edible world that you're in, and then they have these super fun, fantastic transition scenes in between Barbie Land and the real world, and you have
Those
so much fun
transitions
doing
are
that.
one of the best parts of the movie.
I
You know,
loved them,
all
and we
the
got
like moving
multiple.
parts of the sets, like there's people behind that set moving that by hand, like,
Yeah,
and it is like that's like real old
again, very
school silent
intentional.
movie type
Yes.
of stuff. Like it's so magical.
And I love that you say that because I feel like we got a lot of those kind of old timey peaks and callbacks in a lot of the films that came out this year. So I'm really glad that you
Mm-hmm.
said that because I also want to talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just, and then going from those really fun transitions, very intentional again, into this cold, gray, sad, depressed real world. And
Mm-hmm.
just like
With
very,
undertones of violence.
yes, everybody's angry. Everything is very like abrasive,
Mm-hmm.
and it adds so much. And again, you just have that feeling of I want to go back. I want to go back to Barbie World. Like I want to be there. And it just I thought they just did such a wonderful job balancing that.
Yeah, and then when we do go back to Barbie World, the chaos of Kendom is, I mean, it's so fun. It's
I
so
love the
manly.
chaos. I feel like it's so easy to take like the antagonist and
Mm-hmm.
just bring it all down. And I thought that between Ryan Gosling and Will Ferrell, I felt like their characters still kept the energy up, and I loved the chaos with it. It was just, it added to everything. It just kept the momentum going, but not in a way where like you feel uncomfortable.
We were talking a little bit about this movie before we were recording this episode, and I think you have an interesting favorite part of this movie. You just mentioned him a little bit. You loved Will Ferrell in this movie. You were
I loved Will
tell me about
Ferrell in
that.
this movie.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've gotten a little worn out on him in recent years. So
Mm.
I really loved the vibrancy that he brought into this role without taking over the scenes that he was in. I thought that he did a really great job again keeping that physical comedy. He was the quote unquote antagonist in the real world. You know, you got the chase scene, you got him trying to put Barbie back in the box, but he just did it with so much vibrancy, and he did it without taking away or taking the momentum down or making it too serious. Like he did such a good job at keeping it light, but still kind of adding some tension in. I thought that he did great. I know he wasn't everybody's favorite, but I thought he was a wonderful addition.
No, I love that. I love that. I mean, my favorite. I'm pretty basic. I just loved Ryan Gosling in this movie.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
there's something to be said about this movie, and a big takeaway being Ryan Gosling. But
yeah.
I think if you're Greta Gerwig and you're directing this movie and Ryan Gosling is giving you what he's giving you, you have to run with it. Like you have to get as much of that in there as you can
Yeah,
because like it's like lightning in a bottle what he's doing. It's maybe his best role ever. I'm a big
yeah.
fan of his, but he's just it was the perfect role for him. Excuse me, but you have Margot Robbie and him just I can't imagine two people in this movie over them, and it's still as successful as it is. And
Definitely.
I also think it's interesting because I think Ryan Gosling is also the antagonist of the film. So I think it's
Yeah,
funny that we both sort of
definitely.
single
He's
out the antagonist. I love that.
yes, yeah.
Antagonists.
And I think that you're going to have more than one. You're in more than one world, and so
Hmm.
you're going to have two people who have opposite agendas.
Yeah, pushing
But
up
again,
against
Ryan
Margot
Gosling
there.
was able to add that tension without taking away from the energy or bringing it
Hmm.
down. He kept the momentum going. I loved the chaos of
Hmm.
fandom. It was just, it was great.
The
The
horse
fur coat,
posters,
oh
the
horses,
fur coats.
the saloon doors. You had
Yeah,
like
the
it,
saloon doors. That's so manly. That's so manly.
just the imagination with that. Like
Hmm.
they could have taken it so many directions, and they went very like rodeo with it. I just thought that was so fun.
It's not a perfect movie. It does have some issues. So as much as it hits some high highs, I don't know. I think we both had some things about it that maybe didn't quite work for us. Is there like what would you want to talk about there first?
I mean, so you know this about me, but maybe audiences don't yet. I am a sucker for a good screenplay. And
Hmm.
so I think that's something that I unintentionally pay a lot of attention to. And so when I kind of see weak points in a script, it really kind of takes me out of it. And as many great moments as there were, great lines, really funny moments, great jokes, a lot of the script felt very hollow to me. It was more so towards the end, um, but I felt towards the end that I was lacking a lot of content out of the script. I felt like a lot
Wasn't
of it was
delivering on
very
some of its promises.
yes, and I just, I felt like they were holding your hand to the point and they were really kind of dragging it out and just really making sure that everybody was on the same page. And I think that that can be a little insulting to audiences because they were doing such a great job up until that point of showing you the message without being in your face. And so I was a little disappointed in that. And I just felt like towards the end, I was missing a lot of like content that they could have really had there.
They could
It
have
just
gone for it a
felt,
little better.
yeah, it felt very much like they went with the second draft of the script, which
Yeah,
was,
I think when you're going into a movie like this, you kind of have to know like
yeah,
this is based on a product that a company is involved in this production, so there's some corporate drawbacks here. I feel like you kind of have to understand that this is a low key commercial for the Mattel company. I think it's almost like a little
yeah,
bit of PR, like, ooh, we've done
hmm
some things in the past, but I think a lot of the Mattel characters in this, and the knowing sort of the self denigration was sort of the negative aspects of Barbie. I think it's a lot of it is PR for the Mattel Corporation and them sort of trying to be in on the joke. I think that's something you have to be aware of going into it. I think the
yeah.
more egregious commercial aspect of this film is there's a
I know
car
exactly what you're
chase.
gonna say. Yeah,
Oh my god, there's a car chase in this movie that's just disgusting. It's ugly to look at.
it's
It's
not,
just
and it's past the ugliness of the real world. It's just a poorly done car chase. Like it's
yeah,
just
it literally the whole the whole lighting of the movie is has this artificial look to it that's really good.
yeah,
But that whole thing, it literally just looks like it should have like "Do not attempt" Chevy or like whatever like
professional
on the
driver.
screen there. Seriously, it
Yeah,
just I don't know, something about the way that was shot just felt like, not that the movie has an organic feel, but it didn't
no,
feel
but
of a
it
piece with
didn't
the
feel like it
rest of it.
fit. Yeah,
Yeah, it did
no.
not feel like of a piece.
And I
And
get that you're gonna have sponsors,
mhm.
but I don't think the demographic for this movie is going to be going out and purchasing that vehicle. I just
Yeah, and
I
I mean, does it just have to be so blatant? Is there not like a
right.
more interesting way? I don't know. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe this is what it had to be. I'm still happy we have the movie, but I don't like that part of the movie at all.
I yeah, and honestly, forgettable too. It just isn't, and it makes me
Not
sad
for
because the
me because it makes me
dialogue.
so mad.
Yeah, yeah, it's upsetting too because they have really good dialogue during the car chase.
Hmm. And I'm checked out. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
rolling
not
my eyes.
there.
we talked a little bit about the point of the movie. There's a really famous monologue.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
I think
Where?
it's gotten a lot of positive attention. I
And I
think
get why.
I think the message there is really good.
Yep.
I hate this monologue. I hate
I
it.
do too.
The
I do
language, thank you, Brent. The language is so basic. It's sort of
too.
saying the same thing over and like she's saying the same two sentences, I feel like, in different
In
fonts
different ways. Yeah.
over for like 3.5 minutes.
Mhm.
Uh it's a great point, but the whole movie has to grind to a halt while America Ferrera holds your hand all the way to the point. It felt a little insulting to me.
That exactly, and that's what I was kind of getting at earlier. Is
Hmm.
that I feel
That's what I
like
thought.
they did such a good job beginning to middle with dialogue and
Hmm.
really kind of displaying the point without throwing it in your face.
Yeah, the
And
movie
then
is
like
way better when it's using its satire and its comedy to get
yeah,
at these ideas.
yeah.
Much better.
And then and then like you said, it just grinds to a halt and then it just feels very thrown in your face. And this is really where it felt like they went with the second draft and that was it. They said, good
Hmm.
enough, it'll stick. But I
Yeah,
think that you could have done so much more for the audience there. And I don't think that they needed you to dumb it down like that.
and I think a lot of this has gotten so much positive attention, and I think there are a lot of people out there that like really liked what this had to say. I think anyone
Yeah.
that needs to hear this though, like anyone that needs to hear this message because they're not getting it, this
Yeah.
monologue is not going to convince them. Like I the
No.
language is just so basic and the delivery is just a little it's just not inspired to me. I
It's
didn't buy it. I
no.
didn't
It's
buy it.
very surprises me for
It
something that
feels
is
lazy.
it does. And it's meant to be so impactful, but it's delivered in a lazy way. Like it's very low energy. It really kills the momentum of the movie. Um, and like you said, like anybody who needs to hear that message because they haven't gotten it yet, they're not going to get it.
Mm-mm. They're
But
going to turn their brain right off.
the people that it did like resonate for, the people who needed to hear those words for like their own sense of self, like the people who needed to feel heard, I just feel like they were insulted a little bit. I feel like you could have given them so much more there. I mean, this is the narrative on women's treatment in society and I just
Hmm.
feel like if you're going to give that, they deserve more than what they were given.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
that's what's insulting to me.
the point of what they're saying is good and important,
Yeah.
and but yeah, the delivery falls flat, and I think it's it's a huge, if not the biggest flaw in the film for me. Like as
Yeah.
commercial as it is, it's that aspect that I kind of sat there in the theater and I was like, what is happening right now? And the last part of the movie there really does sort of yeah, I think it has trouble getting back to its peaks after that moment.
Yeah.
It has its
Yeah.
good moments, but yeah.
Which, and I think that, those ending scenes, like the one with Barbie, where she's going through that very emotional moment of like, who am I? What am I doing here? Like, I'm regular Barbie. I feel like that was a good moment to kind of, you know,
Yeah, what does it mean to be stereotypical Barbie? Like put in a
right,
box like that.
exactly. And I think that was the good moment to kind of ground the
Hmm.
message. I don't think that it needed to be brought down before that. And I just feel like we never got that momentum back. And I feel like it led to a lack of closure almost because it just felt like falling off a cliff.
Yeah. I mean, I love that last line. I think that last line is really funny. There are some people that have an issue with that. Like as maybe being a little gender essentialist or something like that. But I still think it's a funny joke to end the movie on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the movie just never like I think that I'm Just Ken does happen after that monologue, and that does sort of put some spice back into the narrative. But yeah, the rest of the movie, I was
Yeah.
just really disappointed with that monologue, and I didn't care for it at all.
Yeah. Well, and I loved I'm Just Ken. I thought, and I thought there were great ending moments in the movie, but I felt like I wasn't in it anymore. Like I wasn't pulled
Hmm.
in anymore at that point. And so it was like, yeah, funny moments, great number. Like, but it really just it took me out of it, and
Hmm.
that was really disappointing for me. And not to say that it made the movie bad, but I think that that was the weakest point in the whole thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Anything else to touch on there, Bryn?
I don't think so. I really, honestly, I think it was just kind of the unpolished feeling of the script was really my biggest flaw.
Let's talk a little bit about the Oscars here because Barbie has 8 nominations, Bryn. Let's run through them really quick here. So it's got a Best Picture nomination. It's got a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, 2 nominations for Best Original Song, a
Mhm.
production design, a costume design, and then a nomination for Ryan Gosling and America Ferrera. Bryn, do we think it's going to win any of these at the Oscars on March
I
10th?
definitely think and I hope that it takes home production design because, like we
Hmm.
talked about, come on,
It's amazing looking.
amazing.
It's one of the coolest sets like ever.
Yeah. And I think just for the sake of, like we were talking about, like with all of the clothes made to look like doll clothing and like
Hmm.
how, historically accurate to Mattel a lot of the outfits were, I hope that it takes home costume design as well. Um, and then I think Billie Eilish is taking home her second Oscar.
I really agree. Billie Eilish is about to become the youngest person to ever win 2 Oscars on March 10th, which
Which
is
is, that's crazy.
insane.
I'm good
Deserved, but
for her.
insane.
Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah,
those are
I
those are my top three. I don't know if you have any different thoughts, but
no I really hope that it does win production design and costumes. I think it's got stiff competition in another film that we both really loved called Poor Things that we'll probably do on our next episode.
yeah,
I think Poor Things and Barbie have a lot of interesting parallels, not only
yeah,
thematically, but just the knowing artifice of the look and the construction of the film. And uh, yeah, I just think the 2 all timer nominations here, and one of them is going to take it. So I'll be happy either way, but I'd probably vote for Barbie myself.
yeah. I think, and don't get me wrong, Poor Things had gorgeous costume design as well. But
Oh, yeah.
I just think for like the feat that Barbie pulled off with costumes there,
Hmm.
I would be so happy to see it take that home.
Hmm.
I'm not going to be disappointed either way, but
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Let's see what else was there. The screenplay nomination. You talked a little bit. You're a screenplay person, and you weren't super enthused with this. That's a great category this year because you've got Oppenheimer in there. You've got American Fiction, The Zone of Interest, and one other thing that I can't think of right now. Let's see here. Poor Things, of course. I think it's likely I can see Poor Things taking that, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of passion for Barbie, and I
Mhm.
think that Greta Gerwig getting snubbed in director because that's such a great category this year.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I wonder if maybe some of the passion and the outrage might push them ahead for that Oscar because it'd be nice to award both her and Noah Baumbach, who've
Yeah.
both been nominated before.
It's
Um,
definitely an interesting thought, and I guess I hadn't thought about it that way. So I like that thought there.
I think it could happen. I really do.
Yeah, and
It's a
and you're
beloved
probably not
movie.
wrong there. I just I feel like in the other ones that we've talked about, they feel more polished. They feel like they
Hmm.
were more intentional, and I
It's nuts
just
that Killers of the Flower Moon is not in that category. That was a huge
you would think,
surprise.
you would
Yeah,
think. Um, and I don't know. I just, as much as I wish Greta Gerwig could be nominated for director,
I don't
I
know who I'd take
just,
out.
I exactly. I just also don't think that them making up for that with this win should come at the expense of these other screenplays that really, really deserve it.
Might deserve it more. Yeah, I agree with you there, but the Academy, who knows what's going on in those silly
Oh
little
yeah.
heads.
What I want versus my expectations, completely different. The Academy never ceases to
Yeah,
disappoint
the
me.
Oscars, they only matter so much. It's just fun to talk about, fun to
It
guess.
is. Yeah, definitely.
All right, what else? That America Ferrera nomination, awful. Oh my, it's all for that monologue too, and we've talked about our feelings there, but
Yeah. But
that was a
again,
real
I
head
think
scratcher.
it was just such a fan favorite, though, that I think that it gives her a good shot at it. I just don't. I don't get it. But
Mm-mm. Well, usually I'd say there's no shot that's not going to win, but they gave it to Jamie Lee Curtis last year, and that was, so who knows what they're thinking?
no
Think,
shade to Jamie, but also what?
yeah, seriously, there was much better choices, and I won't get over it. I really don't. I don't think that the passion for Barbie is going to solidify around America Ferrera. If it does push it to any wins, it's not expected to. I really don't see it happening there. I think that
Mhm.
category is probably going to go to. There's really only one performance I like in that category this year, and it's
Yeah.
Divine Joy Randolph in The Holdovers, and I will be extremely ecstatic when she wins. But I want to give a shout out real quick. Julianne Moore and May December should have been here.
Oh my gosh.
That
Yes.
what a fantastic performance. I'm just
Really.
yeah. Anyways, take America for
Yeah.
out, put Julianne in. That's a much better category.
And
Um,
honestly, if Barbie's gonna take home either of the supporting actor awards, it's gonna be Ryan Gosling.
yeah, I agree. I think he stands a little more of a chance to win. I think people were up in arms about this nomination. He's not competing with Margot or Greta for that
No.
nomination. He deserves
No,
to be in this category for
and
sure.
the awards that he has won, I think has made people a little upset in the snubs that
Hmm.
Greta and Margot have received. But at the same time, it's again, he's not competing with them, and I think that he deserves everything that he's been awarded for it.
Yes, he deserves to be rewarded for this work because it's
Yeah, and
fantastic.
his narrative around it, he's handled it very gracefully and very
Hmm.
well, and he's still taking those moments to highlight and uplift all of his colleagues.
Yes, exactly. Which is yeah. Um, I think he's maybe the second most likely winner in this category. I think Mark Ruffalo is also really good. But I think that this would be a good transition into our next topic because the likely winner of the Best Supporting Actor Oscar is presumed to be Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer. For our listeners who don't know, we are in the presence of the world's foremost leading expert on Robert Downey Jr. and his career. If you are watching this on a visual platform, take a look at Bryn's shirt.
This is
Look at
my
that.
Robert Downey Jesus shirt. You can get it at a tattoo shop in Ohio. It's my favorite shirt. I could talk endlessly about this man. You'll probably hear it incessantly in the future. But focusing
Real
in,
quickly, I just have to say, as we're recording this right now on February 18th, Robert Downey Jr. just won the British Academy Award, the BAFTA for Best Supporting Actor, as we're recording this.
Mhm, yeah,
Bryn, where does this fall in the hierarchy of Robert Downey Jr. performances? Is this his best
I
performance?
it is one of. I would definitely say Chaplin is up there. I,
Hmm.
really hard to beat that out. But I mean, you're also looking at a lead role versus a supporting actor role, so they're going to be different. This is his first serious role since The Judge in 2014. He
I
has done
forgot
other
about the
things since
judge.
then. He did Doolittle, but mostly
We
him
don't
and
have to
his.
talk about that.
We don't have to talk about it. That also wasn't for us as an audience. Younger kids there, and I thought it was great for that reason. But aside, aside, um, but mostly him and his wife have been focusing on their production company, which has pumped out some really great stuff. If you have not watched the show Sweet Tooth, I highly recommend it. It is really, really good. I know he's put a lot of heart and soul into that. Susan as well. So I'm not unhappy that he hasn't been in a whole lot since then because they have been creating a lot of really good stuff. So that's been really fun. But this is really his first like actual serious role since The Judge. So it's been almost 10 years, which is tough on my heart, but
Yeah, that's
I
crazy to think about.
which
Yeah,
means
I
that
think
like I think that was the last movie that you and I went and saw together.
I was thinking about that. Was that the last movie we saw?
I
Like
think that was I think that
I
was the last movie we went to see
in the
together.
theaters together. Yeah, which is that's so crazy to think about. Almost 10 years now, 9 years, 8 years, whatever it is.
It's been a long
Um,
time.
yeah, disgusting. But I think that he's really he's about to cakewalk to this Oscar. I think the industry's ready to sort of have him back,
Yep,
regardless of
the
one's
MCU had
opinions of
him
the
for too long.
MCU. Yeah, they have their. That's the thing. That's one of my least favorite things about it is they take all these great actors and then they just don't have the time to really put in more work, like
Yeah,
of the caliber
they're just
that they're
yeah,
capable. Um,
absolutely. And I think that the MCU did just fine. I think that they did pretty dang good from Iron Man up until Endgame, and I think after
mhm,
that it's just been very like cheap, gas
mhm,
station candy type production value. And so I think that's really disappointing because, like you said, it's taking a lot of these really great actors
yeah.
and just kind of putting them in a cage for a few years. And they're just missing out on all of these really, really neat opportunities. And so I am very happy that we have Robert Downey Jr. back from the MCU now so that he can actually put his talent to use again. And I think that this role is such an exceptional example of that.
It's perfect for him. Like, talk about
I was
perfect casting.
I was blown away. Not that I expected any less from him, but I was just amazed. In the way he handled it was so masterful. And I mean this in the most complimentary of ways. He is the perfect person to play a politician.
Oh yeah, the arrogance. He plays very smart. He's got the same sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
that like I feel like George Clooney has, where you just there's
Yeah.
something in the delivery and the demeanor that just feels
Yeah.
so intelligent. I agree. He is so well suited to play a politician, and
Yeah.
he gets right at sort of the seedier parts there, like the insecurities and the
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of a of power hungriness there too.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
This is a really transformative performance by him. What did you think of bald Robert? Still good? Is he still handsome as a bald man?
We can put a hat on it. We're fine. We can get past that, And nothing else. Just give him a little pat on the head for good luck.
Little
Just
pat on the head.
shine
Little
it
pat on the head. You could ask his head for a fortune. Shake that. All signs point to yes. He looks great. He looks great.
little magic 8 ball. You just give it a little shake.
Yeah.
Try again. His
Is Robert
eyes
Downey
roll
Jr.
again.
going to win the Oscar? Signs are pointing to yes.
Signs are pointing to yes.
Yeah. So it's go ahead.
I just back to your point though, like he plays it so smartly, and I think it's
Hmm.
very easy to, in the role of a politician, to just make it feel greasy, make it
Yeah.
feel, very aggressive. But I
Go
think
too
that he does.
big.
Yes, I think it's easy to be unhinged, but
Hmm.
he does it so smartly, and he is so precise with all of his movements, all of his lines,
The
the
micro
micro
expressions.
expressions.
Yes. The
This
little
man is
twitches of the mouth.
the king of micro expressions, which might be one of the reasons that he is so fit for that role. I mean, you
Hmm.
have the scene where he's in the back room of the chambers and he's
Just
going through
exploding.
this internal turmoil and just kind of trying to figure out how to handle it, and you just see the slightest twitch in his
Oh,
smile,
he's just like coming apart at the seams. He's so angry.
and it gives you everything from that one little micro expression. And it's that way throughout the whole movie. The way he handles the embarrassment,
Yeah.
in the courtroom, and I just blown away. I One of his best performances ever, and I think hands down he deserves to take home that Oscar. Not that I think the other nominees did poorly by any
It's
means.
such a good category
It
this
really is
year.
such a good category, and I honestly can't be angry if somebody else gets it. But he has to take that home. Like there's no
I
way.
think people are just ready to give it to him. I think he's just so
I
well beloved. He just feels like one of those people that like has an Oscar. And like you're
Yep.
like, what? He doesn't. He's just so skilled. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what a crazy career for him.
Yeah.
What a crazy
Really
career.
though.
And yeah,
Yeah.
this is definitely one of his crown jewels. That being said, he's not in a ton of this movie,
Mm.
despite being one of the most memorable parts. This is a huge cast. A huge
Oh yeah.
cast.
Stacked. Absolutely. I mean,
I mean, should we just move on to? I mean, we started Barbie with Barbie.
yep.
Let's move on to Killian Murphy shouldering
Also,
this 3 hour epic.
yes. And with grace. I mean, the range and the humanity that he shows, not to say that in any way he's trying to make the character well liked or beloved. I mean, this person is not well liked generally by the masses, but
People in the know.
right. But you have to see the full picture of this person's life, this person's experience, and what he went through. I mean, and it's not like they try to hide who he is by any means. They start the movie off by him trying to poison his professor, and then you go through this moral quandary with him of, oh my god, that's wrong, and he goes and he throws it out. Sure, but it doesn't change the fact that he almost killed a
The
man.
intention there, yeah. Let's. I mean, so his professor sort of just. It's a minor embarrassment, right? He's like, oh, you got to clean up, and you can't go see this lecture. So
Mhm.
I'm just gonna kill this guy. It's kind of interesting because like that's a big part of what makes Strauss that's what gives him such an animus for Oppenheimer is that embarrassment. That's just an interesting parallel there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think that having gone through a fair share of embarrassment himself, I think he once he gains that speaking ground,
Hmm.
he uses it immediately to turn on other people, and he uses it to embarrass Strauss, and it
Yeah,
just
he's really
shows,
smart. He's really caustic.
yes, that arrogance that he had balanced with, all of the guilt and, for lack of a better word, PTSD that he deals with after his creation, and he has to deal with that. And I just think that it portrays both of those so well, hand in hand. And
Yeah, the movie
yeah,
absolutely it doesn't shy away from the fact that like this was a brilliant guy. Like he
yeah,
was one of the
yeah,
great minds of the century. Um, and yeah, I think the movie does a really good job not lionizing him too much and sort of being honest about the negatives there. And
absolutely.
yeah, he just it's such a feat to have such a intimate performance in such a huge
Mhm.
film. And
Yeah,
like yeah, you just totally buy it. You totally buy everything.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think that it in any way absolves him, from everything that
No, not at
he
all.
contributed to. But I think that it offers a very thorough kind
Yeah,
of.
Killian really finds the humanity there without
Mhm.
like we're not trying to say this is a good guy, but the movie doesn't work if you can't find the humanity there. Like
No,
that's
you
something I
have to
think
be
some
able
people
to
miss with that.
understand, not necessarily agree, but you have to be able to understand all aspects.
Hmm. I think it's yeah, it's really interesting because I think a lot of people think that it does let him off the hook or it deifies him in a way, and I couldn't disagree more. Um,
Absolutely. I mean, after the bombs are dropped, every turn he is trying to absolve himself. He's trying to somehow undo
Yeah,
what
I
he
think if
did.
he thinks if he sits for this punishment that it'll somehow
Yes. Yep.
offer
And
some sort of
every
reprieve.
single turn, everyone shuts him down at that. I mean, he goes to see the president, and the president is like, we're so proud of you. You had this huge accomplishment. Like, thank you for doing this. And he tries to backpedal and say, well, it wasn't just me, and I am feeling a lot of guilt over this, and I think that we need to investigate this avenue. And the president kind of just stops and he says, well, I guess it's a good thing that you didn't actually do this. This was all me, so you can get out of my office.
That's a phenomenal scene because he feels bad and he's coming in and he's wringing his hands,
Mhm.
and there's just what forgiveness is there to be had? Shut
There's
up.
no
This is what you
sympathy. Like,
did.
you did what you did, and yes, you were one of the most important minds of the time, but you did this. Like, that is something that you have to live with. And I think that that's another really well that's something else that's really well portrayed, though, is kind of how he grapples with all of those things internally. Like, even just in the editing, you see the background kind of throbbing in and out of focus, and he's feeling
Yeah,
these
how did they do
anxiety
that? That is
attacks. and
such an interesting visual.
and but it so accurately portrays how somebody going through that kind of panic actually feels in
Oh
those
yeah, the
moments.
anxiety.
The
Oh yeah.
deafening silence around you, even though people are screaming, and it's just, you feel like the room is closing in on you. And so I think that they did such an amazing job at handling the human aspect of, like, dealing with those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just such a feat, man, from Killian Murphy. He is not someone who's done a whole lot of leading roles. He's done a lot of
Mhm.
supporting roles in Christopher
Yeah,
Nolan movies and others. Um,
yeah.
he obviously leads Peaky Blinders, which is an incredibly popular show, and he's great in a movie called The Wind That Shakes the Barley, which is a movie everyone should check out. But I think Christopher Nolan really, I mean, he really hit it out of the park casting
Yeah,
Killian in this part. I mean, just
yeah.
those striking eyes and everything he says with it. Like he's doing a great voice here, and he's doing great like he's got a great physicality. He's totally got Oppenheimer's like gait to him.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just the subjectivity and the intimacy is such a interesting part of what makes this movie what it is, because it is this 3 hour talky film,
Yeah.
and that's a hard sell, and Killian makes it really digestible.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like you're watching a 3-hour movie, because he keeps that momentum going in a very subtle way, and he carries it so well. I mean, like you said, the physicality of it, I mean, he comes off as this very meek, structured person, but then the arrogance that he carries in his walk, in his speech, it's all there. And then towards the
Some of
end,
he's got some really dismissive responses to people that are,
yes.
yeah, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And then you see towards the end, when he's in the prosecution, and he's kind of retreating back into his shell, and you just
Taking the
he has that
punches.
he has that full range.
There's almost something in it that reminds me of Raging Bull with the self-punishing aspect.
I totally see it. I completely get that. Yeah, for sure.
Um, I want to move on a little bit. I was talking about the intimate feel of the movie. This was shot in the largest film format we have, IMAX 70 millimeter. They created
Incredible.
black and white IMAX for it.
Yeah.
It cannot be easy to create such an intimate experience because those cameras are huge and they're noisy. You're walking around with like a bathtub on your shoulder that's so the sound work in this is really incredible because like a lot of it is so quiet. I can't imagine how much like on-set audio they were even able to capture with just the way
Yeah.
they were shooting it. There's
Yeah.
images from this film of the cinematographer like standing over Killian in the bed, and the camera's like, oh my god, it's like inches away from him, and like if they drop that, like my boy is dead.
He's done.
uh it's a really incredible achievement for the
Yeah.
cinematographer Hoyte van Hoytema, to create such an experience. I've never seen an IMAX movie um like this one. I mean, it's
Yeah.
totally unique in that aspect.
Yeah. I completely agree, and I think that it adds kind of what we were talking about earlier, of almost the old timey feel. I mean, you have this extremely long movie in the sense of, modern attention spans, if we're being transparent about it. You have this long movie You have it partially shot in black and white. It really calls back to old filmmaking styles. And I was so amazed by that. And the fact that they were able to accomplish that in this way was mind blowing. I loved it.
I mean, I the use of black and white to sort of orient us in the structure of the film, because they're going through, like, is it three or four different timelines here,
Mm-hmm.
and it really never feels confusing because
Mm-hmm.
of, I think, because of how powerful the cinematography is. They're using a lot of visual motifs. You know, the scene of Einstein's hat blowing off is something that we keep returning to, and
Mm-hmm.
looking at new angles. That's just so fascinating, and I think it's hand in hand with the editing here. And if I had to give this film like an MVP, like, Christopher Nolan is doing such good work here. Killian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr. such good work here, but Jennifer
Mm-hmm.
Lame editing this movie, I mean, what a monumental task. And this
Oh
film
my
is,
gosh.
it is briskly paced, and
Yeah.
it's keeping you um like straight ahead through all these different timelines. And I never
Mm-hmm.
felt confused. I always felt like I knew
Got
where we
lost.
were and what we were
Yes.
getting at and why. And it was just, it's such, Christopher Nolan is no stranger to these fractured timelines, and this is
Yeah.
one of his best executed ones. Like,
Yes.
this is a
Yes.
really great achievement from this editor, Jennifer Lame. And
Yes.
yeah.
And I think that she really understood it, like the vitality of spanning timelines and not letting that distract you from the story, because that's that's an intelligent storyline to keep up with in itself
Yeah, there's a
without
lot going on. A lot of it's very wordy.
I had to watch. I mean, I watch everything with subtitles, but I had to watch this with subtitles so that I didn't
Yeah, I
miss
saw
any
this in the theater. I was
message.
sitting a couple rows back in my theater from where a lot of the sound system is. And for the first 40
Yep.
minutes, I was having trouble picking up the dialogue.
Yeah.
But just the power of the images, and like there's a tension in there, and
Yep.
it kept me so invested. Like,
Yep.
between the images and the sound, like, it's such a mesmerizing film.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I've probably seen it a couple times now.
and yeah, and so I feel like she really understood the vitality of that, not taking the attention away from what was happening, because it takes so much focus to actually follow kind of what's really happening. But never once was my attention on what timeline am I in? Where am I?
Hmm.
You know, what are we
Yeah,
doing
because
here?
that'd be way too distracting with all the stuff going
Yeah.
on.
And I just thought that it was handled so well that it was a non-issue. Like it was not a concern at any point in time. And
Yeah, and like you
that's
said,
hard to
with
do.
modern attention spans, like, you have to
Yeah.
have something that's, yeah, it's just so well put together. Like, it really, I think, keeps you invested, which
Yeah.
is that's not always an easy task with modern
Yeah.
audiences.
Yeah. Well, and then that's no insult to the audiences by any means. I know that my attention span is much shorter now. And the only reason that I voluntarily watch 3+ hour movies is because that's my niche. Like that's what I
Yeah.
am passionate about. But I completely understand having a shorter attention span. Like my ADHD can't keep up with anything.
Yeah,
So,
COVID's wrecked that for everybody.
yeah. Yeah, seriously.
That's why
So,
it's nice for a movie like this to be out, though, because I mean, it was such a sensation at the box office, which, like, that's a
mhm.
really good sign, I think, for people.
Yes, yeah, and that's another reason that it is such an achievement, is because being so long and incorporating so many different styles and details and having such a intellectual subject matter, that's tough. So for
Hmm.
it to sell that well, that is an incredible achievement.
Yeah, and I really like so there's obviously this big climactic scene with the bomb, and like what they do with the sound there is just so incredible. The sound, we'll touch on the sound here in a minute. But
Yep.
then after that, there's this whole section of the movie that's this deposition with Oppenheimer. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people had criticisms of that, but I think it's one of the most interesting parts of the movie, and it's essential in sort of painting the full picture of what
Oh
Christopher
yeah.
Nolan's trying to say here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the whole I think that that bookends the movie really, really well,
Hmm.
because I think that it really, him being in a basically a coat closet going through this trial and trying to beg and plead and grapple with other people to absolve him from whatever he's done. I think that all of that really shows kind of how obsolete people become after their achievements. And I think that they did so well with showing that. And I think that that really kind of it shows how he was punished for everything that he did, whether or not it was direct or indirect.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the sound of this film. We talked
Mhm.
about the editing, but the sound work here and the score are huge parts of what this movie is doing.
You have the scene where he's addressing the people of Los Alamos, and everybody is wildly cheering, and all of a sudden it just you goes silent again, and the use of silence here is just amazing.
Best scene in the whole film. Just the dissolution of everyone there in the room, and him sort of stepping
Yeah,
through what he has to step through there. And we talked about the wavering background. We talked about,
yeah.
yeah, just
Well, and you really
the
watch him
feet
go from
pounding is such
yeah,
a powerful motif in this film.
yeah. Well, and it's a combination of that. You're watching him have this kind of breakdown on the inside, and he's still
Hmm.
trying to save face because he's trying to address these people with confidence, and you see that arrogance start to slip, and now he's kind of fading into the guilt, and then it kind of shifts to you're watching, the same light from the bomb goes off in the background, and then you're seeing everybody's face peeling off, and like you're watching everyone
That's
kind of like
horrifying.
go from cheering to screaming, and it's just like
Oh yeah,
the
that scream sent chills down my spine.
yes, yeah, and just the juxtaposition of like what that scene should be for him and what everybody else is actually experiencing there, and then versus like what he is starting to come to terms with on the inside and how that is portrayed in his reality there. Really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think the choice to go with the silence during the bomb scene was a really powerful choice, because I think a lot of people, you're sort of expecting some type of catharsis, some type of like big, huge climactic moment, and I can't remember if we said this already, but it just sucks the wind out of the building, and it kind of just leaves you sitting in silence with the implications of what's just happened. Yeah, this was a huge success at the box office. I feel like part of it was the Barbenheimer phenomenon. This movie is a lot harder of a sell, I think, than Barbie.
Definitely.
Big Margot Robbie on a screen, or a 3 hour, talky movie. But, it really is fantastic. And I feel like because Christopher Nolan was behind it, it was always going to be a success.
Yeah. Well, and I think the Barbenheimer phenomenon was also like huge in advertising it because you do have these polar opposites. Like you have Barbie that's very bright and vibrant and really kind of just automatically draws you in. And then you have Oppenheimer, which is very dark and it's based on a true event, which not as popular with audiences as something that's made up. But you just have these two complete polar opposites, and it's amazing that they pulled in audiences very similarly. So
Yeah,
I thought that was amazing.
yeah, a huge overlap. I mean, I've never seen anything. It was a huge cultural event. It was so
Mhm.
much fun. So I just think it was good for the movies.
Oh yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit about like the use of sound in this movie, because it's really exceptional, and the score as well this is one of the best scores of recent years.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think the most astounding piece when it comes to sound is actually the lack thereof. They utilize silence so incredibly multiple times. You have when the bomb goes off initially, and I think that that's a very shocking moment for viewers because, you're expecting this huge boom, you're expecting something, and it
Yeah,
just,
some catharsis.
but you have this just dead silence and it forces everybody to just be quiet. Like it just takes all of the air out of the room. You're waiting for something. You know something will come, but you're just sitting in this limbo. And they utilize that several other times, you know, when he's addressing the people at Los Alamos, and it goes from this roaring cheer, and then you're watching him have this kind of internal panic, and then it shifts to screaming out of silence. And just the complete flip in that, it was so astonishing, and it was so like just gripping, like it really pulls you in there.
Yeah, the way it just sucks the wind out of the building, and it just
Mhm.
sort of it leaves you're expecting this huge boom, this catharsis, and it leaves you instead sort of sitting and stewing with the implications of what's just happened. And it was just really powerful. They're really using every aspect of filmmaking here. Like they're really thinking through everything, and it's so good. It's just so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. And then, you know, they have that other piece towards the end in the deposition where it goes completely silent. And you know, it comes after all of this loud argument, and they're grilling him and they're throwing questions and accusations at him, and then it just goes dead silent, and it again it's just going from 100 to 0. And I think that's more shocking than any use of sound that you could have.
Yeah, I love all this sort of deposition trial stuff at the
Yes.
end. And Jason Clark, big shout out
Oh
to
my
him as
gosh.
this prosecutor. Like I
Yeah.
felt like I was in trouble.
I know. I was like,
He's
did I do
really
something?
good,
He
really
is, and for
effective.
such a limited role, he really just squeezes everything out of it. Like,
I That's really sort of the name of the game here with Oppenheimer, isn't it? Like all
yeah,
these people showing up for a scene or two and just giving it their all. Like it's
yeah,
so fun. You know, there's a lot of really great little bits.
yeah,
Casey Affleck showing up for to as really nerve wracking.
yeah.
Matt Damon is, you know, he's Matt Damon here, but it's fun.
I thought my favorite part that Matt Damon did though was towards the end in the deposition. I mean, he that was the most
That's a
like
great
human.
moment from the character.
Yeah, that's the most human part from him that I saw. Um, Josh
Great
Peck
mustache, great mustache.
popping out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
Josh Peck. Good for him. Good for
I
him.
love him. Love him.
Where was
Love what
Miranda?
he's doing. I
Miranda Cosgrove low key could have played Oppenheimer. She would have been great. Similar
Yeah,
look.
yeah, I see it. I see it for sure. It was a little surprising to just see Josh Peck kind of pop up out of nowhere. I was like,
A
oh,
little jarring. A little
he's here.
jarring.
But I loved it. It was very fun. Um, but yeah, I don't, just a lot of really good moments, small moments from a lot of actors, but
Hmm.
they really just did everything they could with it.
Bryn, it seems like we both really like this movie. Do we have any detractions? Do you have anything that maybe didn't work for you here?
Yes, but small. And this honestly isn't even this kind of plays to what we were just talking about. This isn't really even at the fault of the actor herself, but I thought that Emily Blunt was kind of the weakest link in the whole movie. And
Hmm.
it's not that she got a whole lot of opportunity to kind of interject herself. She had some really great moments, don't get me wrong, but I think overall, I think she was my least favorite part, and that's not normal with
Yeah,
her. I think.
for a movie that's 3 hours long, it's kind of weird to say like I could have used more of it, but I do feel like there is a little left to be desired when it comes to the principal female characters here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this movie is so subjective. It's so about Oppenheimer, and pretty much all of it is from his perspective. There's some moments where we break from that, but one thing I had an issue with was just some of the dialogue. I feel like that's not Christopher Nolan's strongest suit as a writer.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of discourse these days about sex scenes that I think is just ridiculous. Like, grow up. Like, sometimes people have sex, and that's just something that
Right.
happens. And his relationship with Jean Tatlock, the Florence Pugh character, I think that the dialogue in those scenes is a little weird. But like, I don't
Mhm.
anyone that's like, oh, the sex is so unnecessary. I think you're missing the point, because that intimate relationship he had with Jean Tatlock was a huge part of his political downfall.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm sorry, but if you are going into a movie that you know full well is about atomic bombs, be adult enough to sit through the sex scenes.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it's not like it's a family movie all around. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh yeah, kids, let's hop in the car, let's go watch a movie about a bomb that killed thousands of people.
yeah,
No, like
it's a movie about human people doing human
human
stuff.
things, which
Yeah,
are not
it's
always pretty, and
I
it's
just
not
find a
always
lot of that
comfortable.
sex scene discourse so ridiculous.
It really is.
why are we becoming Puritans? No one like
Right.
I
And
still think
like,
you're a pervert. Just so you know, everyone, you're not fooling me. Oh, I don't like sex scene. You're lying. You're a liar, and I see
seriously.
it.
And I don't think I don't think that that's really, I don't think sex scenes in general are really anybody's takeaway from movies.
Yeah, doesn't ruin a
But
movie for me.
and so that's, I did kind of find some of the heavier dialogue in those scenes a little out of
Hmm.
place,
Yeah,
but
out
for
of
the
those scenes, the
relationship,
dialogue is the problem for me.
yeah, but also for the relationship of the characters. I mean, him and Jean Tatlock kind of connected on that intellectual level to begin with, so why would their intimacy not also involve that?
Hmm.
So as out of place as it feels in some parts, I also completely understand why.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a part of getting to the humanity of the character, like
Yeah,
in the end. But yeah, there's not too much I think to detract from this movie. Like
yeah,
it's arguably his best work as a director, Christopher Nolan. Like it's really an achievement.
absolutely. We're looking at best picture, best actor, best supporting female actor, best director, adapted screenplay, original score, cinematography, costume design, film editing, sound, production design, and makeup and hair. Just a I mean, it found its way into almost every category.
Yeah, they were just ticking it down the ballot.
So, out of those, what do you think it's actually taking home?
I mean, I've got it winning like at like a minimum of six. I think. Like so, we talked about the
Yeah.
score. Ludwig Göransson just knocked
Hmm.
this one out of the park. He's won before. He did the score for Black Panther. Um, I wasn't
Hmm.
I wasn't a huge fan of that score, but this is
I
just
understood the appeal to it, though.
yeah. I just think that this score is it's on a different level. He's doing things
Definitely.
with the time signatures, and
Yes.
it's just really
Yes.
exciting to listen to. It's just
Yeah.
gorgeous. I mean, you can just put it on in the background, and it's just
Oh,
super
yeah.
super amazing. So I think that is clearly winning.
Yep.
And we've talked a lot about the sound of this film, and it's weird enough that I think this one's a little bit of a battle. I think
And
Oppenheimer is a
yeah.
likely winner here, but there's a film called The Zone of Interest, and
Hmm.
that I mean, the whole concept of the zone of interest sort of revolves around its use of sound, and it's really evocative. And I think either way, that's a goated winner,
Yeah.
Oppenheimer or Zone of
Yeah.
Interest. But I think it's really likely that Oppenheimer takes it. But I currently have Zone of
Yeah.
Interest
Yeah,
there.
and I think that their utilization of sound is very similar in that way. Like, it is very pivotal to the progression of the film.
Yeah,
And so
it's very mindful.
I think either one of those is perfectly fine, but I think Oppenheimer might take it. I think it's going to take best picture.
Oh yeah, I really don't see what else is going to come in at this point and take it away. But
Yeah.
I think the editing, the way this movie is put together, that's going to be rewarded. I don't know
Yeah.
what else would win, even though I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of Anatomy of a Fall. The cinematography is, I mean, there's so many categories where I'm looking at it, and I can't see another thing winning.
Which,
Uh,
and that's saying something too, because the categories are stacked. Like, there is
it's
not
a
really a bad thing on those lists.
it's a great year
It
at the
is. It really
Oscars.
is.
Do you think the
Um,
screenplay's got a shot? Because we talked about it with Barbie, though. Those are in the same category. That's tough this year.
I I will hands down take Oppenheimer's screenplay over Barbie's. It just felt like there was more there, and I don't know if that's just the subject matter if you're just going to feel like you're getting more out of it. But I think that there is a way to do that poorly, but I think they executed it very well. I felt like I got a lot of content out of that versus Barbie. And again, two completely different. It's not totally fair to compare them, but that's what the award shows are
I
for.
mean,
So,
yeah, they're putting that category together, so you gotta.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a chance that the support for Oppenheimer, the way it's been nominated for everything, I can see people going down the list and just ticking it off. But I got to give a shout out to Poor Things here, which I think I like
yes,
that script more than I like either Barbie or Oppenheimer. And I also think American Fiction is a really well adapted script from its original novel Erasure.
yeah.
But
Which we'll get
in
into
there, I would
more
say
of
Oppenheimer,
the
I don't have it winning.
yeah. We'll get into more of those other comparisons in our pre-Oscars episode, but I
Hmm.
definitely think that you completely have a point there that it's up against some
Hmm.
tough competition there.
Yeah, I
Um,
just think I just don't think that that's Christopher Nolan's strong suit, and I think he's going to get
no,
rewarded elsewhere that
yeah,
night.
yeah, I was just gonna say he definitely makes up for it in other facets entirely, but everybody's got to have a weak spot, and I don't think that his screenplay necessarily detracts from his work by any means, but it also doesn't necessarily stand out.
Yeah, exactly,
It
exactly.
doesn't really grab you.
The
So
technical elements of this film really sort of supersede the script writing.
yes, yes, and
Um,
I was just gonna say like I think that um, the only reason I would put it above Barbie in that way is that I felt like at least towards the end of the movie, the Barbie script did take away from it. It did detract.
mhm.
So I feel like not necessarily that it means that it's better all around or the best, but I think that it it didn't take anything out of the movie. I think that it was perfectly adequate for what the movie needed it to be. So I thought that I feel like it's a good competitor there.
Hell yeah! I mean, we'll see on March 10th. I don't think it has no shot to win for sure.
True. The one that I am almost sure of is Robert Downey Jr. taking Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, absolutely. He's won pretty much everything, and as of like while we've been speaking here on the
Mm-hmm.
18th of February, he won the BAFTA, the British Academy Film and Television Award for Best
Yes.
Supporting Actor. So, yeah, he's basically got it on his mantle already.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, not to say that I would necessarily be upset if Ryan Gosling took it, but I just
It'd be
feel
a
like
surprise.
it's him all the way.
It's his time.
So,
It's his time.
yes, definitely.
Um, Best Supporting Actress, Emily Blunt.
No,
No,
no.
here's the thing about Emily Blunt. She's doing a really good voice here, but I'm looking at her, I'm like, that girl's British. She just looks British.
She
I don't
does
know.
look British.
I'm just looking at her like, this is a British girl. Yeah, no, I think that that category is pretty well sewn up as well. Best actor. This one is a little
This one's a
fun.
toss up. This one's a little tough. I mean, I definitely think he has a good shot at it, but there are
I
some
think the
tough ones on that
performance,
list.
yeah, the performance, because everyone saw this movie, I think people are going to be surprised if he doesn't win. Like, we'll look back and, like, oh, he didn't win for that. But
Hmm.
this is another really strong category. I mean, it's super, super fun to go through. He's, I think it's maybe a 50-50 shot. He also just won the BAFTA while we've been speaking. But
Hmm.
um, in our next episode, we're going to be talking about this movie. But I think Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers is, similar to Robert Downey Jr., I think it might just be his time. He's beloved, and
Yeah.
it's a great performance. So funny,
Yeah.
and it's tough because they're two really different performances. And I really don't know who I'd vote for here. I really don't.
Hmm. Yeah. But that's the thing though, is that I feel like we have a pretty wide array of genres of,
Yeah.
actors and performances there. I mean, it's not even often that you see thrillers or horror movies nominated
Hmm.
for awards, and Anatomy of a Fall is doing phenomenally. And you just don't see that
Yeah.
very often. So that in itself is such an achievement. And I think that it just kind of adds to the uncertainty of how it's all going to turn out.
Um, we'll get to Anatomy of a Fall eventually on this podcast. That's my favorite
Yeah.
movie of the year. Just a great legal drama thriller, who done it,
Mhm.
whatever. Moving back to Oppenheimer, director Christopher Nolan, same as Robert Downey Jr. I think no one can stop him. He's a freight train.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it would be well deserved if he took director. So,
We have it winning basically everything it's up for, I think, right? So I think we've got it one for picture. I think we're sure about director. We're sure about supporting actor, cinematography, editing, score. That's six at least. So I mean, this
yeah.
this is gonna just clean up.
Yeah. I mean, and it has so far. So I won't be surprised.
Do we have anything more to say, Bryn?
I don't think that we have anything that we won't get more in depth on in our pre Oscars episode, but overall, I think this is just a phenomenal year for movies, and I think
Yeah,
that um,
this was a
I
great
just I
place to
can
start.
yeah. Oh, what was your final rating of Oppenheimer?
Oh, that's right. Honestly, I hate that I am sort of gonna give it the same rating that I gave Barbie because they came out at the same time. But
Mhm.
I've got to go with like another 4.5. It's not
Yeah.
a perfect movie, but it's a totally great movie.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know, really fun. How about you?
I I went with 5 stars for this. I
Hell
just
yeah,
I've watched it 3 times now. I I'll watch it again. Like I just thought it was so expertly done, and you know, even for any of the minor problems that I had with it, it wasn't enough to take anything away from the movie. I just thought it was a fantastic work.
it's definitely something you can watch over and over again and find something new, something else to focus on,
Yeah.
a different performance, a different line read. Yeah, just exceptional work. Maybe Christopher Nolan's best movie, which that's a great feat. He's
Yeah,
a really
absolutely.
beloved director, so
Yeah. Yeah, just all around great performances by all. So,
everyone, well, thank you so much for joining us for this inaugural episode. Hopefully this edit is all right. We've had a little bit in the way of technical difficulties here, but we're excited to get this out and into the world.
yep.
And I hope that you will join us all next time when we discuss Poor Things and The Holdovers.
Yes. We will have our social medias up soon. This will be available on both YouTube and Spotify. We will post links for everything in the descriptions. But you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And then we also have an email that you can send questions, critiques, anything like that to. Um, and we're so excited to get this started. And we're really pumped for our pre Oscars episode. So thanks for joining us. And we hope you have a great day. Don't forget to watch a good movie and tell your friends about it. Bye.